Welcome back to Talking Hip Hop. I'm your host, JustKeekz, and today's guest is Joy Xande. Stick around. Let's go!
I know the gunmetal sky will be blue again as we make our escape from the cage we're in. I know we'll be set free, it's just a matter of when. I know the gunmetal sky will be blue again as we make.
That was Joy's latest song, Lockdown, featuring the Peace Option.
Joy Xande is a singer and musician. She has mastered playing instruments like the piano and guitar. Xande's musical inspiration comes from her experiences at church. She loved watching the choir and her father perform. Joy created a website in which she designed to share parts of her life and her work. Joy's website hit 1 million monthly viewers recently, and this number continues to grow. Please welcome to the show, Joy Xande. Yay. So talk to me a little bit about, because I know that singing kind of came naturally for you, and that was something that you discovered very early on in life. So let's talk about how singing fell into your lap.
So singing really, okay, this sounds kind of dramatic, if you will. Singing was an inherited thing. Because you also mentioned my dad, he was actually the person who not only taught me how to sing, but took me to church to learn rhythm and melody and harmonies. So hearing these things every Sunday or hearing him sing in the choir, most of the time when you're like 1, 2, and 3, you're picking up tonality, sound, and harmony, right? So I had a wonder for that, and throughout those years, I started just picking up music naturally. My grandparents, in their old house, they used to have a piano in one of the rooms, and I used to play there. And after a while, I was encouraged by my parents, and my parents were encouraged to get me into lessons. Mm-hmm. I crossed over into guitar at 12.
Yeah.
And I was self-taught.
Yeah, that's something else that I was reading on your website. So at 12, you taught yourself how to play a guitar. That's like insane. Talk a little bit about all of that.
I was just enthusiastic about learning things. Of course, there were kids in my neighborhood who were, rowdy and they liked to ride bikes. For me, that was my thing, but it was like only a moment. It was only a moment. And I wanted to start putting myself into positions where, I was teaching myself to do things, right? Other kids were learning, karate, other kids were learning skating, other kids were going to hockey. For me at the time, before I got into martial arts, I wanted to have my own thing. I got into guitar when I was 12 because I just felt inspired by my classmates. A lot of the students that I went to school with, they had the opportunity to go to school of music, right? They also had like music lessons, and I wanted to be a part of that, but at the time, things weren't functioning that way. The recession hit, and my mom, she was a single parent, and she did really well nonetheless because she was still able to purchase a guitar for me. And with that guitar, it was an electric guitar, and I played, and I didn't play well by any means, but I still wanted to learn. I still wanted to get the opportunity to at least have my hands on an instrument. Mm-hmm. At school, you get the opportunity, at least here in the GTA, to play an instrument for a lot of public schools, right? So I went through a list of different instruments and I had fun, but I wanted something I could bring home and say, this is what I play.
Right. So on your website, you write, "We should love what we are given in such a short amount of time, no matter what our circumstances may be, because in a blink of an eye, a bad life situation could become a great life situation. And the same could follow for someone in better circumstances. It is essential to recognize the time on this earth is a gift." How much do these words mean to you, and how much do you value these words? It's a beautiful passage, by the way, but talk about how much it means to you?
For me personally, I have the opportunity of being in a great neighborhood, a safe neighborhood. I know a lot of family and friends who didn't get the opportunity. At the same time, you can be in a great neighborhood but still feel like you're at the bottom. And that's a tough thing to go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying, oh, one person. I'm saying that collectively, we as a people, we could be at the height of our success and still be in the worst state of our lives. We could be at the worst of our lives and still have the happiness that anybody has ever achieved. There have been predicaments in my life like that. And I'm proud to say that the reason why I chose the name Joy was because in the Bible, for me at least, joy is gladness not based on circumstances. And I believe in that. That's where that quote, if you will, comes from for me.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I know that I actually was under the impression that Joy Xande was your real name. And then I later found out while reading on your website and doing a little research that it's your stage name. So, and you kind of talk about where Joy came from, but where did the Xande come from? Because that's also a really cool, like, last name. And it's also hard to pronounce. So I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
You are.
Okay, good.
Wow, perfect. I didn't even have to do a thing. That was perfect.
Yeah, so talk to me about that last name and how you came up with that.
Yeah, for sure. The way that I came up with it, I was like, for me, sometimes, we have our moments where we're just like, oh, I just want to be alone. I just want to be by myself. Other times you recognize that we are humans. We need to look out for each other. We need to stand up for each other. When I just went for a quick Google search, I was looking for protector of, right? I was looking for something that says, okay, we are in an age where things are continuously changing, We're in an age where technology is taking over. Yeah. Who is going to protect that of the civil person, the civil human being? So Xande generally comes from, I guess you say, it comes, I don't want to say it comes from the French. I don't want to say that, but I want to definitely say that it comes as a definition of protector of man, protector of mankind. And that was really what I was going for. I want to make sure that although we have our ups and downs with human beings, one another, collectively, we have to look out for each other. So gladness that is not based on circumstances, but we have our bad days and we're still looking out for one another. That was my standpoint with the name Joyce.
Yeah. So when I was listening to your music, I feel like it gave off a very melodic, jazzy, and soulful vibe. But I want to hear from you. How would you describe your sound? How would you describe your sound to a first-time listener?
For sure. Honestly, I would say it's very, very rhythmic, very soulful.
Yes.
I honestly would say it's very creative. There's not one song that I can actually think of that doesn't have its own form. There's nothing in the collection of songs that I've made thus far in the past 2 years that sounds like any other song that I've made. I've worked with a lot of different producers and I'm very proud of that. I would definitely say creative and soulful for sure.
For sure. So while we're talking about that, do you have any artists who may influence your musical style or inspire your work?
Oh yeah, there are so many great artists. As of recently, I've been trying to really get more into the style of what Patti LaBelle sounds like.
Wow.
She's really, she has her own octaves that she follows. She has her own range that she follows, right? And the more that she progresses as an entertainer, as a diva, right? You see how she changes and it's always graceful. It's never boastful. It's never proud. It's very dignified. Yeah. So I admire her quality most of all. If there was another one though, honestly, right now it's just Aretha.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You picked some really good ones. The OGs. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you talked about also on your website, you were born in Illinois and you
Yes.
did a lot of traveling back and forth from Canada back to the States because your mother lived in Canada and your father lived in Illinois. So talk to me a little bit about the travel. You know, how did that affect your creativity? And how did that also spark this dream of yours to pursue singing? Because that, again, I was reading your website and I could tell that you were mentioning being on the road trips, the songs you were listening to in the car, all of that kind of had a part in you becoming Joy Xande. So talk to me a little bit about that.
For sure. From even when I was very, very little, 2 and 3 years old, that was a thing. Like, my father, he has family here, but he moved to America because he wanted to pursue a career there. My mom thought, okay, fine. She'd move back and forth. During the summer months, you know, we'd go down there. Sometimes we'd go in the winter and spend our Christmases down there. Sometimes it'd be for like prolonged periods of time. This was just before I started going into like school, preschool and stuff. And then my dad would do the same thing. He'd come back over. He would be here and we just be a collective family here as well. After a little while, I started going to New York with a lot of my family. We started piling up in vans, like 7 people per van with all the luggage. And somebody would be playing the exact same disc over and over and over again. Yep. So you'd hear bands like Switch, you'd hear like Terrence Trent D'Arby. You'd hear like all these classic 80s songs, and you'd hear like lots of different, obviously West Indian music, Caribbean music, soca stuff, all of that great stuff. And of course, like that influenced me to not only read books of legendary people, like you'd hear Michael Jackson even, and after a few summers, you'd see me in the back of the car, carrying books of autobiographies of just artists, reading and reading. If I couldn't bring an instrument, I still wanted to learn something. In the car rides, being in the back seat sucks. You're little, you're squished, you're on everybody's stuff. It is what it is. Nonetheless, I found my headphones. They used to make these pillows that had a speaker inside of them, so you rest your head on it, and you just listen to music. Yeah. That was probably the best part, you know? Externally, what used to inspire me most of all was being awake, being asleep, and acknowledging, you know, acknowledging the way that the day changes. The way that the day changes. So you could wake up in like a completely different city. You could be traveling to like New York, Quebec. You could be traveling to Illinois, Indiana, anywhere. And you wake up listening to Janet Jackson. You go to sleep listening to a whole reggae vibe. You listen to Bob Marley when you fall asleep. And then you get out of the car, you go get your chips, your Timmies, and then you come back, and then it's a whole different vibe. So it's like a road trip for other people, but for the one person in the car who's like deep into it, they're like, oh my goodness, sound. It's like somebody is playing an entire catalog of things that you've never heard before. It's like a new playlist. Mm-hmm. That was my Spotify playlist when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Road trips.
Wow.
You know?
So, you know, and I as you were talking about this, all I could think of is there's 2 people. There's 2 people on the road trip. The one that's in the car, very passive. They just want to get to point A to point B. And then there's the one that's taking in the music, looking out the window, you know? Yeah. And I feel like you're probably the other one that's like looking out the window, taking in all the music playing. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And
thank you.
So you also have a project you're working on. I'm not quite sure, but it's called 183 or 183.
I'm so happy that. Yes.
Yeah, I want you to share some more information about it. Talk about it. Describe everything about that whole project.
You'll be happy. Oh yeah. You'll be happy to know. Right now, I'm sitting next to the outfit that I have to take pictures in.
Oh, okay.
Promo is this week. I'm working on a lot of different pictures, promo. I'm working on a lot of different projects. I have about 6 different tracks right now on the EP. It is my first EP.
Nice.
180, thank you. 183 for me is basically 183 ways to write a song, right? I don't have 183 songs, no doubt, but it's 183 ways to write a song. And I can do that in 6 songs. And I wanted to give somebody an idea of what different ingredients can sound like to really make a recipe good.
Okay.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. No, but I like
it's like
how you explained that. Yeah.
Thank you. It's kind of like I guess you could say it's like a cheesecake, right? I think of every EP as like a baked good. An album is like a baked good. You don't want to have something that's too tart. You don't want to have something that's too savory, something that's too sweet, or something that's too light. A good balance of different songs. That's what I was trying to accomplish. So hopefully when it comes out, it's received well.
Yeah, for sure. So is it, what date is it coming, or like when can people expect for it to be released?
For sure. Pre-save should be available within the next 2 weeks. I've listed for roughly about August 17th, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Next week. The release date will be at the very end of this month, and it'll be featured definitely on there as well through my Instagram stories. So if anybody's wondering, Facebook and Instagram, they're connected. If you don't use Instagram, it's on Facebook, vice versa.
Right. So that's how people can check it out. Okay, awesome. So another thing is you have a very deep connection with water. I can tell alone just by looking at your layout on your website, and you mentioned it's something that motivates you. So what is this? Talk about this special connection you have with water.
There's so many things. I'm so happy that you brought that up.
Okay.
One of the biggest things is we don't realize how big the idea of water is. The fact that water can swallow us whole, but we can also swallow water and it nurtures us. It's like a deep cycle, right? You know, and not only people just think it has to do with like my heritage. Of course, I have parents that are from the islands, right? They're from over there, and it's beautiful for me, and I'm happy about it. I'm proud of it. But most of all, it's the fact that water is such a deep cycle, and it's profound. It's very profound. It's an element that is just so profound, and there's so much depth to it. And every time people think, you know, this has to do with eco-friendliness as well. Every time somebody thinks to themselves, oh yeah, I'm gonna throw this bottle into the water, I'm just gonna leave this trash. By the time that you leave that trash, like let's say it's like a wrapper from a Rice Krispie square, you leave the trash there, in the next 3 days, that trash could end up by the beach, right? In our water that we drink as a collective, right? So if we don't care for what we lay out, what we leave behind, how are we going to sustain ourselves as a humanity? You know, how are we going to sustain ourselves as humans? That's the big connection that I have with water.
Right. Yeah. So are you independent, or is there a team of people helping you out?
Little bit of both.
Okay.
So definitely when it comes to putting out music, as of recently, I've become more group oriented, and I'm happy to have all these people working with me. It used to be just myself and one other great person who's been a producer for me since I was in my first year of college.
Okay.
And he will also be featured on this EP, might I add, as well with my teacher and a producer from Argentina as well. I just want to make sure that everybody...
Yeah, no, this is your moment to talk about that. Yeah.
Thanks. But definitely, there's a whole lot.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot happening.
So how far do you want to take it? Like, how far do you want to go with music? What's the end goal? Where do you want your efforts to lead you? What are some of your future plans? Talk about that.
Once this EP is released, I'm hoping for a mass amount of songs to start being produced, written, co-written as well, because I would love features on my next few tracks. Most definitely, that's in like the next 5-year plan. For the next 10 to 15-year plan, I'm hoping that I have the opportunity to definitely tour around the GTA and definitely get to know lots of different artists within the GTA and externally, internationally as well. Something else, in the next 10, 15 years, I definitely would love to make sure that I have my MTBC under my belt. I would love to work with music therapy in the future. So not only do I want to be an entertainer, I do want to help people. I want to have that opportunity to give jobs to people, especially all different types of therapists. I want a diverse range of therapists and music teachers who are capable of working at the establishment that I'd like to create. And although there are some now, in the next 10 to 15 years, nobody knows where we'll be, right?
Yeah.
What's a dream now for me is my future. I like to put the bricks down as I go along. So in the next 10 to 15 years, I hope to be touring, and I definitely hope to have foundations and places where people are able to heal. That's my plan. That's what I like to do.
So really quick, list all your socials, let people know where they can go to visit your wonderful website. Any other information that you want to plug before we end the interview. This is your chance. Go for it.
Here we go. You can follow me on Joy Xande on almost every social platform. I'm very consistent. JoyXande. If you want to visit my website, joyxande@.com. If you choose to, you can visit my Spotify. Right now we are streaming in Ottawa. Lockdown is streaming. So if you're in the Ottawa region, request it. I'd be very grateful. Other than that, I'm very grateful for this interview. This is amazing. This is really fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on my show. I'm really, really happy you carved out time to do this. I know you're working on the EP stuff, but that's awesome that you made time to come out.
I like being here.
Yes. So make sure you guys check out Joy Xande on all platforms. Check out her website. Keep up with her on social media for when her EP is going to be released. I'm your host, JustKeekz, and until next time, keep talking hip hop. Peace.